it has to be true. It has to be reasonable. It has to be something that they're going to buy into. If using multiple concepts or approaches, be aware of how they're complementary or conflicting with each other. Great suggestions do no good when other great suggestions cancel them out in the client's mind. Okay. Does anybody need a quick break? Okay, let's take 5, and we'll be right back. I didn't get that gene from my sister. Next, I want to kind of touch on beautiful words. Okay. What I mean by beautiful words is not touchy-feely, nicey things, although they're great to use and everything. What we mean are words that are effective in use. Those words that are effective in use are beautiful. Okay. Nice words are certainly beautiful, but so are others that express power or permanence or things like that that aren't necessarily concepts of beauty. Okay. Every word in a script is important. Okay. Now, that's not to say that if you make a mistake in a session, that the entire thing is shot. You know, you can always recover. But you have to be aware of your words, even to the point where you're saying, you know, like in the script we used at the very beginning of the session when we did the trance work. I flip-flopped between talking about your stream and other streams, you know. A river's goal in your drive to get, you start creating that confusion, another technique, you know. So they're all, and the placement of them is important. So if you go back and, you know, if you kind of take a look at that later on, you can go, okay, when did he say yours, and when did he say its, and when did he say whatever, and why did he do it that way? And take a look at what you might come up with. Become very good friends with your thesaurus.
Something like that.
Become friends with your thesaurus. And if you use a word processing program, click on the thesaurus button all the time. You know, you can highlight a word and say, you know, come up with 50 different other words you can use in place of it. And sometimes I have found this is interesting in word processing, because when you click the thesaurus button, you also get, you know, how that word might be used as a noun, as a verb, as an adverb, as an adjective, whatever. It gives all the different things. So you can look at some other option of not how you're using it in the sentence and go, hey, wait a second, this is an even better concept than what I was working on, you know. So take a look at that thesaurus and really use it and utilize it. Also remember that beautiful words can begin to lose their beauty if they are overused. Deeper and deeper. Sometimes hypnotherapists use the excuse of compounding to absolutely destroy the meaning of a word to a client. Okay, keep that in mind. What I tend to do is if I say deeper and deeper, later on I say further and further. Then I'll say deeper and wider. Then I'll say much more distant. Or I try to, and personally, I survived a near drowning when I was young, so deeper and deeper is not a real comforting thing for me. You know, I've overcome that, but I still, you know, so you don't know what you're dealing with. Sometimes people are going to have that stuff going on. So think of different ways, you know. I don't say you're going deeper and deeper into relaxation. I'll say you're drifting further into relaxation, you know. That's a more lateral move, but it's down that river, you know. So think about how you do those, you know, that redundancy. Beautiful words must also be your own. Just because you find a word as you're working and you go, you know what, this is a great word, I'm going to put it right here. If it's not yours, it's not beautiful. Okay? So the important thing about writing scripts is once you've completed them is read them out loud. How do they feel to you as you read them? How do they sound? You know, is this your stuff? You know, it's kind of like having, you know, Jed Clampett doing Othello. They're not his words, you know. He may deliver them perfectly and know every single line in that wonderful Shakespearean play, but those are not Jed's words. Don't use words that aren't yours. Also, don't get in a place where, you know, I fall prey to this. You're too flowery, you know. You have to know what client that's good for, what client it's not good for. And you also, with the scripts, getting back to using scripts to learn how to do it on the fly, is if you're working with a script and it has language in it that isn't quite right, you're going to be perfectly prepared in practicing writing to just kind of zip, that phrase is gone, and you put in one that's appropriate. Okay? So that's where this is all going. Write the scripts so that you can write them in your head. Yeah.
Do you do different, I just came out of Awakening Hypnosis with the children,
Mm-hmm.
and they talk about the visual and auditory kinesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
Do you write scripts about the same type of, like for smoking or what have you, that would use more visual, more?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you can, and that's part of what, you know, we're talking about is think about how a script might be for a visual person. Think how a script might be for an auditory person. But that was also touched on when I said, you know, that whole thing about me not being able to visualize very well. Is that if you make that kind of caveat before you start and tell them, your mind understands all, you know, you're Kreskin, that they're going to take it, whether they're visual, whether they're kinesthetic, whether they're auditory. But certainly you can write stuff geared specifically for those communication types, and it's great practice, it's great exercise. It was really funny, as I had, and what people believe, here's the thing about working with scripts, is when I write a script specifically for a client that I have created a framework for a session with a script, I will tell them that I have written a script for you. And so if in the process of the session you hear a page turn or something, that just means that I am making sure that I touch on absolutely everything that I feel you might need to hear today. So I build that into them buying in, and it builds rapport that I've really put a lot of effort into it, which I have. I had a client one time that I did that whole deal with, and about 3 minutes into the session, I stopped using the script. I went someplace, nothing in my script was what I ended up doing. I got about 3 minutes into it and changed, and about 5 minutes into it, she said, she opens her eyes, I can't do this. It just sounds like you're reading. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, would you like me to go? And I wasn't. Would you like me to go in a different direction? Yeah, sure. So we went in a different direction. But she thought that I think she thought I had some like plan B. And a couple seconds later, she opens up her eyes again. She goes, it sounds like you're reading still. You know, maybe this just isn't going to work. You know, you're just not forceful enough. And I said, well, okay, you know, that's fine. So I asked her, would she like to continue? You know, would you like to try this with a different approach? Sure, she wanted to try a different approach. I became more authoritarian, and I went where she said she kind of wanted me to sound and be, and then she didn't want to do it because she thought I was just performing for her. You know, I don't really sense that you're strong enough to be telling me to do these things. I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. What it actually ended up being was the client had control issues, underlying control issues, and she did not want to relinquish that control to have me guide her in the ways that I thought was appropriate. And so when she saw that might be happening, she took a hole and made a hole for herself by opening her eyes and made me change. And so, to appease the gods, I changed for her, and she made another hole again and made comment and opened the session again. And I changed again for her. And then I just said, well, if this isn't going to work for you, I certainly don't want to waste your time. And by doing that, I don't want to waste your time, I don't want to waste your money, yada, yada, yada. But by doing that, I still had control of the session. I had control of the script, which I was giving her. I didn't get, confrontational. That's fine. It's all about you. That's okay. And so you use those words even in controlling a situation like that. You always have to have the upper hand. They lead, you control. You build a script the right way in practice, you build that same thing in your real-time session work. Okay?